The Colorado Supreme Court, 4-3, decided to take President Trump off the ballot with an asterisk that if the Supreme Court takes the case, they will keep him on the ballot through the determination by the Supreme Court.
This is the most important election case in U.S. history. This is the ability for one sole administrator, a Secretary of State, a Director of Elections, to remove a candidate without due process, without being charged with insurrection. And to me, that in and of itself is just absolutely unacceptable, outrageous. And you talk about a violation of constitutional norms and order. This is the most.
Inside the Colorado opinion, removing President Trump, they put a very important clause that stays the removal of President Trump until the Supreme Court decides, the U.S. Supreme Court decides whether or not to take action. And that would then stay it until the Supreme Court does take action.
It's taking away the right of citizens to vote for the candidate of their choice. This is an absurd ruling. You talk about election interference. This is election interference in a magnitude we've never seen. Having said that, this is what it means. We've got a full team on this, probably 8 lawyers right now that are working on this, and will be through the holiday and into the beginning of the year. But the next 10 days are going to be critical in this case. So our first documents to be filed with the U.S. Supreme Court are going to be next week. We'll be filing what's called a petition for review, petition for certiorari. We may ask for summary reversal. We may not. We're still looking at that. And then you have to start doing the merits brief. So the other side's going to respond, and we have to respond to that. This is going to happen, Jordan, very quickly. I think by mid-January, this issue is joined, and we could well be at the Supreme Court arguing this case.
We're joined right now by our client, Dave Williams, who is the Colorado GOP chair we've been working with throughout this trial.
This decision attacks 3 fundamental things that are the bedrock of our country. It attacks our First Amendment rights, it attacks our foundation of free and fair elections, and it attacks due process. You can't, in no way, shape, or form can we start punishing political speech and saying that it somehow is a crime when there was no charge or conviction. And we certainly don't want to go down the road of other banana republics or the Soviet Union where they're deciding which candidates are appropriate to be on the ballot. That's un-American, and I'm glad that we're working with you guys to make that case to the United States Supreme Court.
I also want to bring in Ben Sisney, an ACLJ senior counsel, who has been really a key part of these cases, presenting oral argument in Colorado.
We can't rule out that the other side may yet file some kind of request for an expedited process because even with their win at the Colorado Supreme Court, as you indicated, the Colorado Supreme Court is leaving the lower court's decision in place until that January 4th deadline by which we will have filed. In other words, if it goes past January 4th, then President Trump's going on the ballot, and so they might employ some procedural mechanism to try to speed that up as well. And we'll have to be ready for that too.
We're seeing some international ramifications. The president of El Salvador tweeted this last night, quote, "The United States has lost its ability to lecture any other country about, quote, democracy." I mean, for the moment, the world is watching, and they are seeing a legal system that acts before President Trump has ever had due process on whether or not he committed insurrection, which, by the way, he isn't charged with in any of the cases that he's even facing right now.
Think about this. Your State Department today is going to be critical of Maduro for not letting people be on the ballot to compete against him in an election that happens early next year. The complete irony, the complete dangerousness, that's a terrible word, but it's so deeply dangerous for the United States to head down this path that we have criticized around the world for decades, and criticized rightly so, for regimes, political leadership to deny some party the chance to compete on a ballot where the people have the right to absolutely reject them. This is uncharted territory, and you're right. The rest of the world will remember this forever.
If the Supreme Court doesn't overrule this, your ballot just gets tossed. It doesn't get counted as a write-in for Donald Trump. It just gets tossed. You don't get a chance to vote for someone else. Your vote wouldn't count. And then they say they don't even know how it would impact, if he did win the primary still nationally, how it would impact the general. They haven't even gotten to that issue. So it is time, folks. This is the most important time to support the ACLJ financially. We did not want to be fighting this fight. I would tell you, we don't have to fight the fight to make sure that you have the right to vote for the candidate of your choice. But let me tell you what the ACLJ will do. We will fight that fight with every resource we have. You provide those resources to us. Donate today. Double the impact at aclj.org.